there might be somebody walking in the parking lot waiting to get in.
Well, we're gonna do it however you say. Chairman.
Well, all right, here we go. Good evening. We're about to open this meeting of December the 6th. Goodness gracious, December's going by. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. Anyone who'd like to join me, please feel free to do so. Please join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How you doing?
Good evening, everyone. Before we open the meeting, I did this last meeting. You're just gonna start hearing it every meeting because sometimes we have people that come to meetings quite often and they've heard it and understand it, but some people have not come, and so we want to make sure that everybody is all on the same page. So I'd like to welcome you here this evening to the business meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education. Before we get started on our agenda tonight, I want to do a little housekeeping and be sure that everyone's all on the same page. As previously mentioned, this is a business meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education. The public is not only welcome, but invited to be our guest at any meeting. We're here tonight to conduct the business that's on our agenda, and that is exactly what we're going to do. In the past, the chair has requested that all who are present adhere to the rules and follow proper decorum, but this has been an issue to some who decide they don't want to follow the rules. Those rules include, but are not limited to, no applause during the meeting, no outbursts, willfully making noise that is distracting to the podium or board members, yielding to the chair when called to do so. I was elected by a majority of my peers on the board to chair the meetings and to see that our job gets done, and I intend to fulfill my duties. If disruptions break out, you put the chair in a position that I prefer not to be in, but we'll face it head on. The chair has several things that can be done in this case. The meeting can be recessed for 10 minutes, 10 days, or as long as the chair feels it necessary. The chair can adjourn the meeting, and this meeting will be over. The chair can have the disruptor or disruptors removed from the meeting, or the chair can clear the room completely. I prefer to have a very respectful meeting and not have to deal with any of this, but I'm prepared to do so if necessary, and there will be no warning. This is your warning. I wish none of this. I wish only to have a productive meeting with all of you here, simply respecting and obeying the rules. During the recognition of public, all comments are to be made to the chairman. You cannot call out any board member, school district employee, or other members of the public by name. Inflammatory, disruptive, or vulgar language that in the opinion of the chairman is intended to elicit a reaction from the crowd will not be tolerated. If these rules are not followed, the microphone will be cut off and the speaker will be instructed to take a seat. I thank you in advance for your well-behaved guests. The first item on our agenda is to call the meeting to order, and I hereby call the meeting to order. Next is roll call. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
Got the roll call. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the regular agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Lancaster. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes, discussion and or action regarding the minutes of the November 15th, 2022 regular meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is recognition and delegation of, recognition hearing of delegations. My tongue's not working tonight. That's not good for an auctioneer. So the first one on the list tonight is Hillary Lounder. Come on down, Ms. Lounder, and give your name and address for the record. And please make all your comments to the chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hillary Lounder, 1401 Shoreside Drive in Hendersonville. Good evening. I'm here to, oh, wrong speech. Okay, well, I don't have my correct speech, but I'll wing it. Considering that Sumner County is the largest employer in our county, I don't think that it's ridiculous to spend the $11,000 to find a qualified director. Our schools have been going in a great direction. I think it would be silly to not do a very comprehensive search and make sure we find somebody that can keep them moving in the same direction that they're going. And if we think that TSBA can do this, which I think they can, it's what they do, I think it would be worth making the investment, especially since it's already been budgeted for. It's not like we're trying to use money that we're having to pull from somewhere else. I know there are 3 levels. I personally think we could get away with 2, but there's money for the 3rd option if we wanted to make sure that there were some open forums. And again, I just think when we're dealing with a person that's going to be managing so much of what goes on in Sumner County, that we need to invest in the process. I think that this is going to be an unprecedented search for this county, because I don't think that there's ever been kind of this decisive overtone that we've got going on right now. And I really think any candidate considered is going to go online, access meetings, both, county commission and school board. And it's going to maybe take some people are not going to want to take on the situation. So I think any help that can be had for finding the new director is going to be a good thing. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lounder. Next is Holly Cruz. Ms. Cruz?
Hello, Holly Cruz, 3275 Hartsville Pike. Good evening, school board members. I'm speaking tonight in support of utilizing the TSBA in our search for the next director of schools. It is evident that our school district, as well as districts across the country, are facing massive teacher shortages, curriculum critiques, mandatory state testing, disruptive behaviors, as well as major outside influence on how our schools are ran. I believe TSBA is up for the charge in recruiting appropriate candidates and has options that fit within the budget set forth for recruitment. I'm in favor specifically of option number 3, specifically noting the point of conducting employee and community meetings and reporting on those. This will eliminate the burden of this task on our county employees. I feel that if we choose an option from TSBA, the ability for our community to be involved is invaluable, however, not at the cost of our county employees. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and support you all, and appreciate your dedication to supporting all of our students in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Next is Joanna Daniels. Ms. Daniels?
Good evening. Hope everyone is having a wonderful day so far. So I am here talking about the TSBA. And, I watched the meeting on the 29th, and I also know of another school board member from Metro that interviewed, TSBA when they were looking for a superintendent. And I think that TSBA, I don't see anything wrong with them. However, this is such an important job, superintendent. This is really important, and we have some time. And I know with TSBA, you guys are members. It comes with the membership. And fiscally that sounds great. And however, you know, like when I had a project done this summer in my backyard, I got 3 companies to give me a quote. And I believe that with something that's such as important as a superintendent, that we should have, the public should have presentation from probably at least one more firm or organization. And, you know, if that means that, if that means that we have to spend a little more money because maybe that firm is going to be better qualified or have a larger reach, I'm about quality, not about convenience when it comes to a superintendent. And, you know, like I said, not to say that TSBA is not quality, but we haven't compared it to anything else. So how, you know, taking 2 quality, you know, firms and seeing which one maybe fits our needs a little bit better or has a larger reach. So that's my thoughts, that this is a very important, we have a little bit of time, you know, it's not in 2 months, not in 3 months. So that's my thoughts on the TSBA. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Megan Brennig.
Hello, I'm Megan Brennig. I'm at 171 Wimbrook Trace in Hendersonville. I just would like to take the time to voice my support for using the TSBA for our search for director of schools. I'm actually really impressed with the pricing you are able to get through TSBA. I know that it is significantly less than you would find in the private sector, having been exposed to executive searches in the past. It is very impressive, especially for the quality and the level of service that they're offering. So I would like to recommend that the second option is probably enough for what our county needs. But I would also say that if there is budget for the third option, I think right now our county's looking for more transparency, and that level of transparency may be a benefit to the director of schools who eventually gets the role, and maybe will step into a little bit less contentiousness having exposed the county to that person ahead of time. Thank you for putting in the effort for the search, and thank you for your work on finding TSBA's recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Branning. All right, next item on the agenda is, we don't have matters from council, so it's reports from the director. Dr. Phillips.
Merry Christmas. Tell you what, the first semester, it goes by faster every year. But we're to that time of the year where we're having testing in high schools and exams, and we're getting close to the end of the first semester. We've had a great start to the school year. It's hard to believe it's half over, but you know, like we do with any holiday or break period, we're always happy to see it and enjoy that time. But we always are mindful about students that are traveling, families that are traveling, some families that maybe might not have the best situation this year for Christmas. So just try to keep all of those things in your thoughts as we go into the Christmas break. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Phillips. Next item on the agenda is new business. Before we go into the new business,
Mr. Chairman.
oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Phillips, I have a question. I've been watching the county commission and some of their voting about our finances, and I have not been personally contacted or informed as to why there is a problem with us receiving funding. And I was just wanting to know if you could give us some clarification on what the holdup is and what we can do to help remedy the situation.
So we've had, I guess I spoke about this in August, September, when we had the first Safe Schools grant funding. That is typical for us. It's the way the grant funding flows from the state. We are awarded that. I think I went over this, but we're awarded that. So we know that funding's coming, and then they actually send the funding, and then we amend it in. So it's really a function of the amendment of money into the budget. So we were able to clear those things up. We went through several meetings with members of the Education Committee, and then Those were eventually passed. We have one that Katie Brown represented us last night, LEAPS, which is after-school programming. That's a program we've had for a long, long, long time, way before me in Sumner County, and it's funded the same way through the state. So this is something that happens annually with the way the funding flows to us. So that amendment went to education last night and passed, so it'll go to budget and then hopefully the county commission. And then I think that will be pretty much for the flow of amendments, the way yearly our amendments come. That will probably be the majority of those that we will see this year. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Phillip. Before we move on to new business, I had some questions on it, and I got some verification today, so I wanted to share this with the board. Questions about option 2. It did not have the interviews with the board members, and many felt like that it was very important. So I contacted Dr. Grissom today, and she said if we decided to hire TSBA, she will add the interviews of the board members to option 2 at no additional cost. So if the board goes that way, we will identify that option as option 2 modified with board member interviews. That way you got 4 instead of the 3. So with that being said, next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction to contract with TSBA for director search. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the recommendation to accept Plan 2 with the modifications as discussed.
All right. Motion been made to accept TSBA contract with option 2 modified with the member interviews, seconded by Mr. Wise. Discussion, Ms. Hawkins.
I had a question about how long this coverage or the cost, does that pay for an extended amount of time? Let's say we get to the point where it's time for the new superintendent to start and we haven't found anybody. Does this $6,500 continue until we find someone?
That's what I understood from the meeting the other night. It's from start to finish.
Okay. And I also,
I'm sorry, and I know when we used Ray and Associates before, that's the way it was.
Okay.
They were with us till start to finish too. So.
Okay. I also wanted to thank the presenters of those coming forward and letting us know how you feel about this. And Ms. Daniels, I appreciate you being a prudent shopper, and I too like to have choices and to know I'm getting what I pay for. And I know that when we hired our last 12 years ago, when we hired the director, TSBA was not available. They had just started their program, and so it was not an option, really, because we were looking for someone out of state at that time. I was not on the board, but that's what I was told. So the board went with an outside firm, and it's my understanding we paid $28,000 for that. That's the cost for the firm and including expenses. Of course, that was 12 years ago. Costs have gone up. I did a little research, and having been in a situation where, in a household where there was an executive who did get contacted by headhunters from time to time, I know that there are different kinds of headhunters. There are some who only look for people who are actively looking for a job. They don't like where they are, or they've been fired, or for some reason they're looking for another job. And I think that's what we're looking at with TSBA is, as opposed to, I'll finish that thought, as opposed to more expensive search firms who actually go out and look and approach and confer with top executives who are currently not looking for another job. But this is, search firms are going out and actually shaking the bushes and trying to entice those top executives from where they are to come to us. So there are different levels of searches, and then I think the flat fee is, from my research, the flat fee is typically going to be about the same when it comes down to it. It's typically for firms like what I've seen, it's anywhere from 20 to 35% of the salary, the first year salary of this person. So my calculation's 20%, the lowest percentage for a firm. That's $40,000 that we're looking at if we start looking at other firms outside of TSBA. So I guess my question is, if I were to make a motion right now to amend the motion to say, I say we look for other firms and we know that we're going to pay at least $40,000. Would anybody second that motion?
We don't have that choice yet.
Okay. Well, that's probably what that's going to be, unless someone can find another search firm that actually, and I agree, I think it should be quality. I think quality is very important. This is an important job, and our children are important. I'm just saying it would probably take a couple more months to get another firm to come in and give a presentation, and I anticipate, unless someone knows something that I don't, it's going to be at least $40,000. I guess, and as far as doing in-house, hiring in-house people to come and do the job of search, I mean, you could, put notices on Facebook and Craigslist and, in the newspaper or whatever. I don't think you're going to get the quality search that you would from using a professional. Thank you.
I'm not sure who I saw first. I'll go with Mr. Lacy.
So are we saying money's an option? We're trying to save the county the most funds? Because if I remember right, when Dr. Phillips retires, we're going to pay him $210,000 after he retires. And that's good for him, but it's not the best decision for the county. So is it about funds or finding the best director of schools? Are we just trying to save money?
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Mr. Lancaster?
So, I'll admit, I would like to see at least one other presenter. I have no thought that TSBA is not the best choice. But it would I think it would be better if we had another option. I've done a lot of research over the weekends since I wasn't here on Tuesday to hear the presentation. I mean, I watched it online and listened and was, live with it. But Hamilton County is one of the larger school districts that had a superintendent search back in December. They used, terrible with names, Bufkin Baker, national search firm. They have an office in Brentwood. That's who, and they've used them twice. I happened to call somebody that is on their school board, said, hey, do you recommend them? And they said, both times they were very pleased with the results of them. I have no idea what it would cost us, but just, to have something to compare, I would feel better. I mean, no matter what I do, my wife will could attest, I'm never a quick purchase person. So that's what I would feel more comfortable with, at least saying, even if it is $40,000, $50,000, I got two options at least, and then I can ask them the question, say, hey, why should I pay you $40,000 versus, $6,500 or $11,500 with the TSBA? And they might not be able to answer that question that suits me, and I'm saying, hey, I'm going with them. Yeah, but at least we'd have the option. And like I say, they're local. I feel like we could get a quote or a proposal from them before next month's meeting and go from there. That would be what I would like to do.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Mr. Brown?
The one thing I think that has not been mentioned, and I think people in the audience and also the new board members, we all know Tammy. Tammy is a bulldog. And so that's one reason I think we feel confident in her, because if it takes her doing another kind of search where she goes out and recruits, I have no doubt in my mind that she'll do it. she would be embarrassed to death to have to get us somebody she wouldn't be proud of for the position. And she will be honest. She'll say, you know, I preferred this one, but that one, but they turned it down, and this is what we're down to. But give me a little more time, I'm still looking. So I really, that's what you haven't seen, because see, we go to classes up there, y'all probably have already been, but I don't know that Tammy was there to meet you. But Tammy will do everything, just like she gave in another thing that would help us out, that to me makes a difference between level 2 and level 3. I mean, she wants us to get what we need. So I have no worry about her with her involved. And I don't know these people that are charging such big prices, why they think they're worth so much more. You know, Tammy is gonna know everybody within this state because she deals with them at TSBA. So she already knows what's available Tennessee-wide. So you know, I think it's important to know. I don't think I'm the only one. Everybody can speak for themselves, but I certainly have full confidence. And it's, to me, a ridiculous waste of money. If down the line we see you aren't happy, then we can address that then. But I think get it going and get her working, and she'll do a good job.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Gregory?
Dr. Grissom, I hadn't really heard that term used before, that she was bulldog.
She is.
But she does. She's Sumner County, lived in Sumner County all her life, except I guess when she was, well, she went to college, and part of it at least in Davidson County. But I promise you, she wants the best for Sumner County. She wants the best. And TSBA, I have never one time fallen short of respecting the job that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, I would just follow up. I mean, I have no ill, nothing against Tammy or Ms. Grissom. Like I said, I've met her. I think she's great. Just at the end of the day, I mean, this is not the sole focus of what the TSBA does. Is they are not a search firm. That's not what they specialize in. It's just we also offer this service, and so that's one reason that they do it at a reduced rate, is because it's not what they specialize in. The only suggestion I'm making is we look at other options and look at an option where somebody that does at least specialize, not look at it, just hear them out. That's my only recommendation.
Ms. Lancaster? Ms. Hawkins?
I have no problem with TSBA either, and I believe that Dr. Grissom is fully competent in her representation of what TSBA can do. But I don't have a problem getting another bid, just so that we are prudent. And if it comes back $40,000, then we'll have apples and oranges to choose from. My only concern is time, but I'm fully supportive of having another proposal, just to have something else to look at.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Lacy?
This is one of the most important decisions we'll ever make. I don't really have anything against the TSBA, but why not give us the choice? Why are we not given a choice? Don't we want the best candidates, the best search firm? Why were we not given the choice? I assume it's our executive committee, which would be Mr. Brewer, Mr. Phillips, who made the decision not to give us a choice. Why can't we search and find out as a board who is the best search firm? And that's the best value for the money. Who made the decision that we didn't have a choice? Because when you gave us one option, you didn't give us a choice. Y'all made the choice for us. Maybe that's normal. But who did make the decision?
I think you're about to make it.
Well, no, we only got one option. Y'all gave us one option.
The board can choose what they want to do.
Well, I'm just asking a question. Who made the decision?
I don't know the decision was made.
Well, I mean, somebody had to put it on the agenda and they just chose for us to look at TSBA. Why not? This, like I said, it's the biggest decision. The director of schools, I assume, is the highest paid person in our county. They manage a budget of roughly $340 million. Why not do our due diligence, find the absolute best person for this job? Feel like we're just rushing this through. We're really not looking at all of our options. It's kind of like all of a sudden we're wanting to save money and spend the least amount of money when we spend a lot of money. I mean, that's kind of, when we spend a lot of money here. I would think we would want to do our due diligence and find the best person. We've got over 6-7 months to find a director. And once, like I said, Mr. Phillips is going to be here 12 months after we hire a director to help him or her do their job. So like I said, I just think it'd be smart to do our research. And some of you guys have already done this. You've had the experience.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In answer to that question, we are about to make that decision. You have 1/11 of that decision. The reason that there's one company, organization being considered is to see if the majority of the board supports that decision. If the majority of the board does not support that decision, then we can get 3 more options. There's no one limiting our options. Tonight, we have one option on the agenda, but it's up to us to determine whether or not we want more options. I've been on this board 14 years. I've been to numerous TSBA trainings, activities, so forth and so on. I have, as others have stated, I have total confidence in TSBA and their ability to do a thorough nationwide search. Director of schools, that market is about like the housing market, Mr. Brewer. Buyers are a lot more precious than they were a year ago in the housing market. Directors of schools are a lot more precious than they used to be. It is a very difficult, strenuous position. I'm confident that TSBA wants for us and will do for us absolutely the best. I was here when we hired Dr. Phillips. We used a firm not associated with school boards. We were in a different position in Sumner County schools at that time, way different position. We needed a fixer, and we got one. Now we need a sustainer. We're not going to have a lot of candidates. From the word on the street, so to speak, we're not going to have a lot of candidates. It might wind up as 2 or 3 viable candidates. But that's because people do not want the position of director of schools. Part of that can be blamed on the political climate in our country, in our state, and here locally. I'm confident, and I've probably said it 6 times, that TSBA will and can do a thorough search and bring us the best possible candidates from anywhere, not just the state of Tennessee, but in the United States of America. I'm extremely confident of that. I support this motion. I second it. I guess I do support it. Time is valuable. We're in the middle of holidays right now. I'm sitting here thinking about Christmas shopping. What am I going to get my wife for Christmas? Because I know what I'm going to do with this vote, but a lot of people are not thinking about their futures right now. But my main point that I wanted to make is to answer this question from my counterpart from the 11th District. We are about to take this option or give ourselves other options depending on how this vote goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Daniels?
Thank you, Chairman. So I work for a local company here, and I've been there over 20 years. When I started at that company, we were doing around 200 million a year in volume, and now we're over 3 billion. So we've continued to grow, and I've seen our hiring process go from, hey, I know this person who knows somebody that would do a good job, and they get a job, to a screening process that involves an application, a pre-screen, an in-person management interview, a group interview, another management interview, profiles, as we've looked to hire everything from teammates up to division managers and executive division managers. And I've been involved in a number of those hiring decisions. And look, I'll be honest, there are times that I look back and I wish I could have a mulligan on some of those decisions I've made, but we've got a pretty good track record of success. And when I look at TSBA and I see their success rate, and I see the personnel that they put in place in other districts, I'm comfortable with them taking the lead on this hiring decision. Now, I was on the board back 12 years ago when we brought in Dr. Phillips, and one of the reasons, and Mr. Wise kind of mentioned it, TSBA wasn't doing a lot of director searches. They were doing some, but they weren't doing as many as they are now for our school districts here in the county back 12 years ago. And we were coming through a period of time where we had really had 2 directors of schools over a 30-year period of time, except for one 3 or 4 year period who was run out of town. We had Benny Bills or Merrill Hyde. And when we were looking to make a decision to bring in a new director of schools, one of our primary criteria was we want somebody from out of state. That was one of the primary things we were looking for. And so we went with the firm that was based out of state that we felt gave us the best opportunity to be successful. We had 5 great candidates. I think 4 were from out of state, and maybe 1 was from Knox County, if I'm not mistaken. And we had really good candidates to help us make decisions. The cost, whether it's 28 or 40 or 12 or 11 or 6, I agree that shouldn't be the determining factor in who we hire to lead the search. I am concerned about time. And I know we say, hey, we've got time to make this hiring decision. But if you look at this sheet that was given to us by the TSBA, plan number 1, first bullet point, publish a descriptive brochure. You go down to plan 2, recruit candidates who meet the board's criteria. So making the decision to hire a firm is not the end. It's not, hey, we're done, and they go out and they start the recruiting process. It's, okay, we've made a decision to choose you, and now you're going to work with the board to help make a decision to set the criteria of what we're looking for, whether that's a national search, whether it's more regional, whether it's more local. We can determine the type of candidates they're searching for. We provide that information. Now, there's also nothing that says, hey, let's go with TSBA, and 2 or 3 months down the road, we're looking at the candidates and we say, you know what, this just does not give us what we need. If we're not worried about time, at that point, we could come back and say, you know what, maybe we can look at another firm. Yeah, maybe we spent $6,500. I don't think that's a huge amount to feel like we've wasted if we haven't found the candidate that time that we're looking for. I feel if we wait, and I know your question was, you know, why did we bring TSBA in and not other firms? I think part of it is because you know, we trust their track record of success. We're part of it, and they could be that first group that we hear from, and then we could decide, as I think some of the other board members said, is this something we want to do or not? And if not, then we can go out and we can look for these other opportunities. But when we talk about time, if we choose to wait and say, hey, let's bring in some other candidates, let's look at some other search firms, whether it's the one that you mentioned, Mr. Lancaster from Brentwood, or Ray and Associates again, or some other group to do a presentation, you know, we're probably looking at January or February before they make their presentation. And let's say we choose one of those firms, and they're above the $15,000 we have budgeted. It's my understanding at that point, we're going to have to push through a budget amendment, which then has to be approved by our commission. Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't approve it, but they've been hesitant so far to make some decisions on money that we already have in hand. And I believe if we wait to do that, you know, we could be looking at March, April, May, or June before we even begin the search. Now, the typical search process, and I'm trying to remember, I think we spent $28,000 back then, and again, I would think based on inflation, you're probably thinking probably 40, 45, 50, possibly. And again, those numbers, aren't really factoring into my decision because I want to find the best candidate for us. But you're probably talking, how long did our search last? And I think there's 5 of us that were on the board back then. 120 days by the time we hired a firm, developed our criteria, put the search out for 30, 60 days, got the candidates back. I believe at that time we started with 10. We narrowed it down to 5. We brought the 5 in for group interviews. Then we whittled it down from there. I think we brought Dr. Phillips back again. You know, so again, I understand the concern, and I know we say we have time, but even if we made the decision to go with TSBA right now, I would be surprised if we're voting on hiring the director before April. If we push that back a little bit further, now you're pushing into May, June, July, into the next calendar year. Now you start running into this, issues with people making a decision on, do I want to take this job? Maybe they've got a contract and they've got a 30, 60, 90-day window where they have to, decide to leave where they're working. Or it's, hey, I can't come until December now because I'm committed through the end of the year. So I think there's a whole lot of other factors in addition to money that we have to consider. So I support the decision. I made the motion to go ahead with TSBA because I think it at least gives us a place to start. And I think if we come back and we say again in 30 days, as we get to that first group of candidates, you know what? It's not really what I want. Let's slow down. Let's see what we can do. I think we can make the decision at that time. Nobody says that we have to choose from their pool of candidates. But I think it does give us a place to start. They have a good track record of success. And they're going to do a national search. It's not going to be local. And I think we could give the opportunity of them to bring in that first group of candidates. And based on my knowledge of Tammy and working with TSBA, I believe they'll do a really, really good job. And if I'm wrong and I come back in 3 months, I'm like, dude, I wish I could have a mulligan, I'll own that. But I think for us right now, this gives us the best place to start to transition successfully as we go into the next school year. And that's why I'm going to support the motion as it's written. Thank you.
James, Ms. Andrews, is your light on?
Yes, it is.
I can't see for your cut.
I'm sorry.
All right, Ms. Andrews.
Yes, I also spoke with Tammy today. Just called to ask some questions and so forth. And she had confirmed that she'd already spoken with you, Mr. Brewer, and that she had made that offer as far as doing the interviews into Plan 2, which I really appreciate. Personally, through her presentation from last week, I was really struggling with would the Plan 3 be worth the additional $5,000? just because she had kind of one of the biggest components of that was the community meetings and so forth. And she had made the statement of that's kind of the biggest component of it, but that they were not really well attended. However, the survey was, she said it was like, I think she said 1 or 2 people at the community meetings, but then there was over 800 people that did the surveys. And so I thought so I really appreciate too, her making that concession for us to still be able to get like the board interviews and so forth, getting the surveys out. I did specifically ask her about recruiting, and she did say that yes, that they would put that out, but then also if there are people that she feels like has not applied that she feels as though would be a good fit for our district, that she would go to them and say, hey, are you aware that there's this opening in Sumner County? Have you considered applying? So it's actually a both and, which again, for the price, from what I'm understanding, is it's a great bang for our buck. I think that's part of the reason too of being a member of TSBA is to have member benefits. And I'll also say on the next page, if y'all have flipped, I'm not sure how many have noticed this, but there's a guarantee. And I don't know how many companies offer that guarantee. Again, this is my first director search, so maybe other companies do offer that. But it says if a vacancy occurs during the 2-year period following the employment of the candidate recommended, the search consultant will advise, recruit, screen, and refer to the board additional candidates who meet the established criteria. This service will be provided without charge. And I think specifically within our current political climate of our county that in and of itself is invaluable. Because if somebody comes in and then says, hey, you know what, this wasn't for me, then we're not then turning around in 2 years and expending another, $6,500, $40,000 to look for a candidate. Looking at all the places that they are going to advertise, the other question is, if we go with another search firm, again, I'm not necessarily opposed to having that quote. I would be very surprised if anybody can get to the 6,500 mark, especially if 12 years ago it was 2,800 or 28,000, excuse me. But where are they going to advertise, and how are they going to get different candidates, or are we going to be spending an extra amount of money for the same candidates? Because I feel like it's kind of like looking at any online job type of place. Most people, whether it's Indeed or whatever, they're all posting the same ones. They're still getting all the same applicants. It's just a matter of how much you pay for it. So I support TSBA. I will say too, she gave us a list of some counties that they have done business with. I reached out to some of those counties, specifically ones, Rutherford, Montgomery, Knox. Anyways, everyone that had responded back to me said that they did an outstanding job, that they did it with fidelity, they did it with integrity, that Tammy answered all of their questions, that they felt like they got great candidates, that they would 100% use them again. And I feel like from a peer, hearing that from peers that went through the process, that and these are all recent, that understand that they have the same kind of communities that we have and so forth, to hear that from them makes me question on why we would use somebody else. Again, if they could show a guarantee, they can show that they're going to get a different, candidate pool than what TSBA would do, which I don't think they would. As was mentioned previously, you don't have people knocking down doors to be director of schools. As Tammy mentioned, last week, she said, 5 years ago that they would have 20 to 30 applicants. She said, we'll be lucky to have 20. That's concerning. I'm gonna be honest, that's concerning for me. But I do know that TSBA has changed many things recently since Tammy's leadership. I feel like they are doing things with excellence. And as Mr. Daniel said, where it may not seem like there is a time crunch, the other thing she shared with me today is she's been contacted by 3 other districts to start their director search. Just finished one, and then there's
I think in addition to us that have contacted, and there's 3 more. So if we wait, then we also run the risk of somebody else getting a great candidate. I don't know if it's a risk that I'm willing to take when it comes to my children's education.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. All discussion, Mr. Gregory's got his light on.
One comment. TSBA will get started by the middle of the month, at least.
I bet she's already got something.
She may have. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, board members, by rule, we're only supposed to talk twice and get 10 minutes each. Several of us have talked 3 and 4 times.
That's a point of order.
So you don't have your light on, but you waved at me, so I'll go with you first.
Well, that's why I waved, because it wasn't a formal thing. I should have said doctor instead of Tammy, and so I want to know if you'll correct the minutes, so I won't look stupid as usual.
I believe Mr. Lancaster was next.
So, just real quick, why are we, I guess, going to Mr. Daniels, why are we choosing 2 versus 3? I understand, I heard Dr. Grissom say that in the past that these employee and community meetings haven't been well attended, but I would, if we decide that this is what we go with, at the very least, I would want as much input as possible from teachers and community members and everything else.
Just to answer that question, I felt like with some of the modifications that Ms. Grissom shared when she was asked about being able to bring over the survey and do the interviews with us that are included with Plan 3, that covered really what I wanted out of that plan. And so I was comfortable with Plan 2, which is why I said the modifications that were presented. And that's why I said I'd be fine with Plan 3. It's not about cost for me. That's got nothing to do with it. I just felt like Plan 2 with those modifications fit the needs of us as a board. So,
thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. King.
Yeah, just my thoughts on this. I think good judgment is based on having some options. At the end of the day, maybe TSBA is the right choice, but I would not mind hearing from another firm, just getting another take. A different. They would be, the TSBA, they have their thing. They have a legislative agenda, they have policy agendas, they're not entirely neutral. If we do another outside firm, it'd be, that's what they do. They find, they look for candidates. That's their expertise. We took 4 bids for a LED scoreboard for Portland High School. 4 bids for that. I don't see why we shouldn't have a few other bids or presentations for a search firm. And I don't think that would be unreasonable. Most with research I've done, most school districts find that they vet maybe 2 or 3 different firms and then they pick one, and that's pretty much normal. So I don't see why it wouldn't be. I don't see why we couldn't do the same, and I don't think it would be that long. I'm thinking like maybe postpone this until maybe the January meeting. I don't think January is putting us too far behind in the process. But I think it would, for me, I'd be more comfortable getting some more time, being able to learn some more, get some more information, because all I've gotten to look at is what was given to us on the TSBA, and full disclosure, I'm not 100% confident in voting to approve them tonight. Maybe I'll get there in January, at the next meeting, and I think that would be a reasonable thing for us to do. And in the meantime, maybe we could get a presentation from another firm. I don't think Mr. Lancaster mentioned a company out of Brentwood or Nashville, Brentwood area. I don't think this presentation, I don't think took months for Ms. Tammy to put together, right? I think these firms are ready to go with some of these things. I don't think it would take them that much time to create a presentation and to come present to us what they can offer. Even if we have to do a special call meeting again, I don't see that. I don't think it would take that much time for them to put a presentation together. So I would just ask the board to consider that. Let's maybe consider postponing this until January, maybe get another firm to give us a presentation. That way we can have an option to look at. And I'll be honest with you, I've not looked at search firms before. This past week was the first time I did any research on superintendent search firms. And so I'm very new to the process and learning as we go. I just like to learn a lot more before I make a decision. So I would just ask that maybe we consider postponing this 1 month. I don't think that would put us too far behind. If we have a vote in January at our January meeting, the timeline in here is 3 to 5 months. If you look in the material that she gave us, 3 to 5 months. So I think that puts us within a good timeline, even if we wait another month. So that's my thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Hawkins?
Lots of good points being made. One in particular that I had not thought of that Mr. Daniels said is that, let's say we do entertain another proposal. You can pretty much count on it being at least 30,000. You're not going to find anything less than 15,000. You're not. So that means if we do decide to go with a more expensive firm, we're going to have to go before the county commission to get that approved, and that's going to be another month, and they may not approve it. So timing, we're not just about voting in January, but if we don't choose TSBA at that time, then we're talking several months until we get the funding to actually put this firm into work. And for that reason, again, that has helped me form my decision on that it doesn't make sense to consider a firm that's going to be $30,000 that we're going to have to wait 3 months to get the funding for if we get it at all.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Gregory?
If we delay a month, we lose about 30 or 40% of our candidates. That's simple.
You have your line?
I did.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Brewer. I agree with Mr. Gregory. We're going to lose out of that pool at least 30% of those that are going to be seeking, because they're all going to be seeking at the same time. And what I heard Mr. Daniels say, because I've not specifically asked this, but we budgeted $15,000. Is that our line item for this? So we know we're going to have to go to the commission, and as many members have pointed out, this might take us a few months to even get that extra money, because I can hear it now. $40,000? So that ain't probably going to happen. I know when I am working on a project at the house, I have a budget. And Jonathan's like, you stick within this budget. Don't start going and looking over at this. This is going to be the budget, and this is what we're going to work with. I think we're going to get excellent support, work, the due diligence that TSBA is going to take for us will be excellent. Dr. Grissom is a Sumner County resident. She is invested here. She wants to see us have, if there can be another Dr. Phillips, that's what we're looking for. So I'm in support of the adjusted Plan 2, the customized Plan 2 that meets our needs. Thank you.
Ms. Hayes, Mr. Lacy?
You know, I emailed the board, I think I emailed everybody at this table about a month and a half ago, month and a half, 2 months, and asked what's happening with the director of schools position. When I was campaigning, the new director of schools was going to be, you know, as a part of the campaign. I knew about it 6 months before I ran for office. Why have we waited till the last minute to say we've got to approve this or we're going to miss candidates? We're going to wait too long. How long have we known that we're going to need a director of schools? And now we have to approve it right now. And we did an emergency meeting at the end of, November, that we had to have a special meeting to hear about the TSBA. Why did we wait to the last minute? Whose decision was to make it the last minute where we have to make a decision? Why did we not plan? I mean, I knew about it 6 months before I ran for office.
Well, I didn't know. I didn't know he was leaving. I didn't know. I wish you'd called me.
Well, when I was campaigning, you had already put your resignation in. They made the offer to pay you $210,000 for the last year, and then the second year that you weren't going to be here, we're paying you $210,000. So, I mean, that was a part of the campaign discussion, was that you're resigning, and for a year after you resign, we're paying you $210,000 to be on call in case the new director needs help. And now it's an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. I think we've all talked about it. Ready for the vote? All in favor of the motion?
I've only talked once, so can I talk again? Yeah, I mean, I do feel that this is rushed a little bit. You know, we just got this last week, and now we're going to vote on it. I mean, I do feel somewhat rushed on this. Okay, so looking at the vote, the procedure for this vote. So are we voting an up or down vote on hiring the TSBA, but also included in that is a plan? We're going to each pick what plan we want. So the vote is not for which plan we're going to choose. Right now, it's an up or down vote on whether or not we're hiring them.
Let me
right?
restate the motion to you. The motion is to, I hope I get it right. You're hiring TSBA to do the director search.
Mm-hmm.
Option 2 modified with the board member interviews.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Can I make an amendment that we divide the question, that we have one vote as an up and down vote for hiring the TSBA, but then we have a second roll call vote as to regarding which plan we want to choose. So instead of one vote lumping it all together, let's separate these two items. Let's have an up and down vote on the TSBA hiring, second vote on what plan each member wants to vote on.
The main motion would have to agree to that. Do you agree to that, Mr. Daniels?
I do not. If he made an amendment to the motion, then he could have that second, and then we could vote on the amendment. But
right, I made an amendment.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah.
I second.
Could you, Mr. Lacy, would you state what you're seconding, please?
That we divide it up and vote on them separately.
All right, motion's been made that we divide it up, been seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but with two people talking at the same time, let's be good examples to especially young people. If you have the floor, let's speak. If you don't have the floor, let's don't speak. Thank you.
He asked me a question. I was answering his question.
Perfect example.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Motion's been made to amend the motion to split the vote, one to hire TSBA and then one to pick which plan. It's been seconded by Mr. Lacy. Ms. Brown.
I thought once we had a motion on the floor and it's been seconded, we have to clear that off before we can go on.
No, you can make an amendment. He's in order. Ms. Andrew?
Just want to clarify so that we're all on the same page. Voting yes on the amendment is to separate it. Voting no is to keep it all together. We are not currently voting on each of those, just on the amendment.
And we need a roll call vote on that. Mr. Johnson, would you take the vote on the amendment?
Ms. Hayes? No. Mr. Lancaster?
Yes.
Ms. Andrews? No. Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins?
No.
Mr. Daniels?
No.
Mr. Wise?
No.
Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Gregory?
No.
Mr. Lacy?
Yes.
Chairman Brewer?
No.
Motion fails 8-3.
Motion failed. We're back to the main motion. And it's already been first and seconded, so let's do a roll call vote on that one as well.
Can we get a clarification on that? So the motion is to up or down vote on the TSB with Plan 2.
Plan option 2 modified with the board member interviews.
Okay. So if we wanted Plan 3, we'd have to make another amendment.
I don't think that would be in order. We've got one on the floor now with the option that has been, so we need to vote for that one, up or down. We need to up or down. If that one fails, then we can go from there.
That's what I was going to clarify. If we vote no, then we could make that motion.
Gotcha.
So we're voting.
All right. Ms. Hayes?
Will you state the motion?
Yes, ma'am. The motion on the floor is the motion to approve to contract with TSBA for the director search and to approve Plan 2 with options modified to include individual board member interviews.
Yes.
Mr. Lancaster? Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Mr. King?
No.
Ms. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Daniels?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Lacy?
No.
Chairman Brewer?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-3.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is new business, discussion interaction regarding reduction in retainage for Liberty Creek project.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Mr. Lancaster. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, unfinished business, discussion interaction regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved by Mr. Wise, seconded by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion interaction regarding amendments to the federal budget. Motion approved by Mr. Wise, beats to it. Second by, I saw his hands, Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of study session items. Mr. Daniels, I believe we've got a full list coming up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So just to remind everybody, our next study session is January 10th. We will have a discussion of the naming of the Union School Library after Will Duncan. We will also have a discussion of policy 1.404, appeals to and appearances before the board, and a discussion of policy 4.403, reconsideration of instructional materials and textbooks.
I have a quick question.
All right, Ms. Andrews.
The naming at Union, I thought you said that was the gym.
No, it's the library.
Yes, okay.
Next communication with board members. Ms. Hayes, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Brewer. I want to give a shout out to the Hendersonville High School FFA. The poinsettias are beautiful. So if you haven't already supported your high school FFA, your agriculture students, go and do that because they just really, I love those red poinsettias. They're beautiful in my home. Also, Bob Cotter had sent me an email this week that the Hendersonville High School band had competed in the Mid-State Concert competition. And Hendersonville High School was third with 25 students that made Mid-State, which is a very challenging, difficult bar to hit. So they were third in the state with the most students, and they also were number one in the state for the jazz band competition, with 25 of their students getting the mid-state honors. So, and across the county, I mean, our county high schools did really well. So Sumner County was represented well across the state. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year before I see you again.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Lancaster?
Yes, got several things I could talk about here, but real quick, I'll let Ms. Andrews talk about the state championship a little bit too, since I know she was there as well. But I will say one of the best parts about going and watching Beach this past Friday night in the state football championship was the amount of people from Shackle Island and that area that drove 2.5 hours on a Saturday night to support the team. It's a great community. I'm very proud to call it my new hometown. I wasn't born here, but I definitely embraced that community, and it was really great to see. We had as many people at a state championship game as at a home football game. I mean, it was great, and Santa Claus was there. My 4-year-old loved that. Shackle Island Santa. So that was great. The other thing, I'll just real quick, we're in flu season, cold season, everything. I just want to give a quick praise to our school nurse staff. My child came home a couple weeks ago, we had to go get her early because she had gotten sick at school. And that's unsung heroes are our school nurses. And this time of year is got to be just terrible on them. Every time I go to the elementary school and to check in, Nurse Angel, who lives up to her name in every sense of the word, has a full house in her office, it seems to. And so just as my wife and I were buying Christmas gifts for teachers and related arts teachers, I was like, did you get Nurse Angel something? Because I don't want to forget her. So just this time of year with everything else, hopefully being off for 2.5 weeks and being away from each other, these kids and teachers can all heal up and get better. So, and I will also piggyback on the Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Lancaster. Ms. Daniel, Andrews, my mouth ain't working again tonight.
Yeah, go Bucks. It was exciting this weekend. It was a busy weekend for me. I got to leave Hendersonville at 5 a.m. on Saturday and drive to Huntsville, go support our cross-country boys. They ran in the Garmin Running Lane National Championship, so that was fun for them to do that. Then we drove over from Huntsville to Chattanooga to watch the state championship. It's one of those things that I have to remind myself that I don't know that our students really grasp, is that it's not normal for most schools to attend as many state championships as those in our district get to. In the last 10 years, my family has attended 3 state championships for Beach High School. And again, so it feels like, oh, that's just what you're supposed to do. But apparently that's not. And then they've also attended state champion, the boys and girls cross country this year were both runners up, which is a phenomenal feat in and of itself. If you saw the group that they run against, it's incredible. I want to say soccer has gone, to state. Basketball last season went to state. I mean, it's really incredible. And again, something that I just don't think that our students realize how special it is to live in a community and have those opportunities, because so many others may never see that, in their stint in school. But so that was exciting. Obviously the game did not come out as we had hoped, but we'll take a silver trophy. just as well as we'll take a gold one. So it looks nice in the trophy case. I would also like to, we haven't done this one, I would like to give a shout out to Andy Brown. I know. He, his guys did a great job, did a project at Beach High School for the marketing. They kind of needed some space taken care of to make the flow better. And those guys were able to go in there and get that done quickly, and making their marketing department, it's going to be even better. So the Buck Hut, or I guess it's the Buck Stop, I think, actually, in the school. We have a DECA group that left today for New York, so if y'all just pray for safe travels for those. I may have one on that trip, so Mama maybe check in, and been waiting for them to get to the hotel, so but excited for them for that. Just lots of things going on. I know there's lots of choir concerts, there's lots of productions and so forth happening right now, so anytime you get a chance to go and support any of the happenings at our schools, I encourage you to do so. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. King.
Well, I also want to acknowledge the Hendersonville High School band and the other band students that went to Mid-State. They auditioned to be at Mid-State. I think we had 45, and 25 of them were from Hendersonville High School, so that's pretty cool. So I just want to congratulate the band students along with Ms. Hayes. I also want to acknowledge the T.W. Hunter Choir, led by Miss Katie Baker. They performed at the Huckabee Show this past Friday night, and I got to go. My son sings in the choir, and so I was a chaperone, and it was an amazing experience for those young singers. And it's a jammin' tune. I mean, you guys need to look it up on YouTube. The Huckabee Show with the T.W. Hunter Middle School Choir. It's a great performance, and so. Check that out, and I too want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Hawkins?
3 years ago, on this day, at this very hour, my husband passed away. And I can't think of a more appropriate way to spend that moment than to sit here in the chair where he sat and doing the things that he loved. And I wish for you this Christmas valuable time with your family. Love on your family and cherish those moments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Daniels?
Thank you. It's hard to follow that.
Sorry.
It's all right. We should have let you go last.
I was not going to try.
It's all right. You know, we Miss Andrews and Mr. Lancaster, Mr. King all mentioned, you know, different programs. And, you know, I think, you know, as we look back at our fall sports and early winter sports, we've had a lot of success across this county. Soccer, cross country, cheer. I know that's going on now. We've had a lot of success. And obviously football. But we've also had a lot of academic teams in our county that have had a lot of success across the state in Southeastern competitions. We've got drama programs and musical programs and band programs that have had a lot of success in competitions across the state and across the Southeast. And received numerous honors, you know, for their, you know, their musical skills, whether that be singing or through music or instrument. We've had a lot of great theater productions that are starting as we go into the winter and as we go into the spring. And, you know, I think about every team has a coach, you know, that pours into the lives of these students. And I know they get paid a stipend, but I think we all know that those coaches, whether that's a sports program, a band program, a drama program, a music program, an academic program, they put in a whole lot more time and energy than really what they're paid for, because they have a passion for that. You know, and you know, as I think about these coaches, and you know, I think about the students that have gone through these programs, And it's amazing. You know, I've heard Jordan Mason, who came through Gallatin and is playing for the San Francisco 49ers now. And, you know, I've heard him say a number of times, he's commented about, you know, the adults and the coaches and the people in this community that had a positive impact on his life. And so I just wanted to call those individuals out. You know, I think as a community, we've got great schools, we've got great teachers, we've got great staff, and they're making a difference in the lives of our students in so many different ways that we don't even realize. And so I want to thank them for the hours they've poured into our students so far this year, and will continue to pour into these students as we move into the winter sports and programs and the spring. And they continue to do that year after year after year. So I just want to continue to acknowledge them and thank them for all they do, and wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. Wise.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Ms. Brown.
No, Happy New Year. I was waiting.
I'll let you add that to it.
Oh, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I'm the same way. It's all about family and not necessarily your relatives, but people you consider family. I'm sure everybody in here's got friends they think of just like everybody else in their family. So enjoy it. Have fun. I'm finished.
You finished.
Mr. Gregory.
Well, like many of you have said, I'm very proud of Sumner County school system.
Okay.
One of our state legislature people mentioned to me that this county was so easily represented in the state legislature because it was in the tops of the state of Tennessee. And I'm very proud of it. Wish all of you a happy Merry Christmas, not a happy birthday, but Merry Christmas. My wife's having a birthday in a few days. And I'm like Mr. Wise. I've been sitting here trying to figure out how I was going to get my wife a Christmas present and a birthday present.
Something that sparkles.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Lacy.
Just Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
All right. Well, I didn't have anything to say, but Ms. Hayes just reminded me to say something, and it's very, very important. We need to remember our resource center. That is the best kept secret in Sumner County, and it is a great, great ministry. They're right behind the building back here. We can donate. They prefer new clothes, all sizes. Get in touch with Kathy Graff, and she can tell you what they need. They need toiletries, they need shampoos, soaps, things like that, shoes. Just check with them and see exactly what they need. And I remember I was over at Walton Ferry one day, and Miss DeBazier was running around over there, and somebody walked in with a handful of clothes. I said, "What's that?" She said, "Well, a little kid came to school today, and his clothes was all torn up and beat up, and he didn't have anything else." And she said, "We call that resource center up there in an hour and a half. We've got a wardrobe for him." It's fantastic. So if y'all can remember to donate, and they'll take monetary donations and everything too. So not a lot of people know about it. We support it at my office, and don't support it near enough. We need to get more stuff up there to them. I'm gonna fuss at my agents, but remember them, and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
What are their hours? Because I've got a truckload of stuff to take to them. A lot.
Check with Katie.
Kathy Graff's there most days from 8:30 to 3:30. She does do community engagements and things. But if you email her, her email address is ida.graff, IDA.graff, and she'll arrange things. Thank you.
Where is it exactly?
It's right behind the building here.
Yeah, where where the teachers' material center is underneath.
Just past the teachers.
Under the old gym.
The old gym.
Where the old gym.
The bottom level.
Oh, all right.
So in case I didn't say it, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Be blessed. We're adjourned.